Hey guys, Samo here. Thanks for checking out the channel and its contents. And if you feel like it, please do subscribe. Thanks so much. Enjoy the video. Bye.
We never talked about it. I felt I understood how he did it. Allan was an ear guitarist for the 99.9% of his career. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he would look and sort of do that, and that gave birth to a song.
Yeah.
So his thing really was basically in his experimenting on shapes and sounds that even he wasn't sure what they were going to sound like. He would do them, recognize that there was something there, and then repeat it until he learned what it was. And a lot of his playing reflected that, his sort of
Yeah.
all that linear playing.
Yeah.
Actually a non-definable thing. He didn't quite know what he was doing, but his ear guided him. It's like your ear is often more powerful than somebody might think. And a lot of these guys were guided by ear, not by training. Ear and a vision. That's
Mm-hmm.
really kind of what it is. Allan had a vision of guitar that was unique.
Oh, yeah.
And as he crept, see, I remember Allan before Allan sounded like Allan, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I knew Allan before, but I knew him even before Tony Williams. I was in Tony's trio with Allan, but didn't stay for reasons I can explain one day. But it wasn't bad. I just didn't feel qualified. But
Oh, well, yeah.
Allan would remember, well, I didn't. I mean, it was, but Allan did things back in the early days that were pretty not Allan-like. I
Really?
heard of them. Yeah, not very interesting, but there was something in the flavor. But you see, nobody heard Allan sound like Allan until the first months and years of work were out of the way. And then
Yeah.
what we heard was the result. And that's how it is for everybody. Everybody sort of tends to really sound bad when we're developing a philosophy of playing.
Mm-hmm.
The nature of the development requires sounding bad because it isn't fully formed. It
Sure.
isn't here it is, I can do this. I mean, I heard Allan doing stuff in the old, I remember one thing.
Yeah.
Really wasn't that inventive, but the concept was. So what nobody ever heard was Allan not sounding great at being Allan.
Yeah.
But when he went through this and then discovered
Yeah. Yeah.
and the developed Allan Holdsworth, that's what we heard, and that's what blows everybody's mind. But nobody remembers the 5 years or 6 years or 8 years before that. I
Yeah.
happened to. I
Mm-hmm.
knew Allan for a long time.
Well, when did you guys first play together? I mean, I know obviously feels good to me with Bruford, which is one of the
It
classic
started with
records.
Tony Williams was looking for bass players in 1975 or 6, and I went
Wow.
up to his house and jammed with him, and he invited me to play with him. And Allan Holdsworth was in the room, and I had never met Allan. I just remember this guy that played legato guitar, and he was interesting sounding. I didn't notice him sounding like he did later, but that's to be expected. So that's where I first met him. Then we did Feels Good to Me, and then later we developed a friendship, and we toured together, and I recorded his record. And
Yeah.
he would have been on my Jack Bruce project. I had a couple of solos for him, but
Mm.
it's sad to say that he left us, and I couldn't have him play.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Yeah. No, I mean, Road Games, again, it's like one of those records, like, yeah, which you and Chad, like, and Al, I mean, it's beautiful record how you guys interacted. I think it's just nice to hear that. And 40 years ago, actually, yeah, crazy.
Practiced a lot for that record. I knew records even back then. I had the good sense to understand that records last forever. I didn't ever actually anticipate I'd be 70 years old talking with Samo in 2023 about it. But when I recorded it, what was it, in the 80s?
Yeah,
I already knew that Allan was a voice, and I knew that this record was going to be regarded, especially since Eddie Van Halen helped to arrange the session for Allan. I knew it was going to last. I knew everything I ever recorded was going to remain. And for that reason, I didn't have genius in me when I play bass. I had a good musical savvy, and I had the determination to practice hard before a recording session, usually before a solo, so that when they recorded me, I'd already fairly well knew I was going to play, because I imagined that years later, people are going to remember it as well. And
yeah, it's incredibly unique on multiple levels, the way he wrote music, and I loved it. So the first gig was in Reseda, a place called the Country Club. It's not there anymore. It was a pretty big place, maybe, I don't know, 600-700 seat place, and it was packed.
Wow.
And I was like, I can't believe this great music with this incredible guitarist, and like people, lots of people are showing up at that time. Gary Husband was in the original IOU band, and he had left to go back home to England, and so Allan started a band. He hired Jeff Berlin, and he was looking for a drummer. So I was through my friend John Ferraro, who also auditioned, but John was already doing a tour. He couldn't work with Allan, so he gave me his number. I auditioned, but the audition was just improvising for about an hour and a half, just duet, no bass player.
Oh man.
Because his thought was, well, anybody could learn tunes, but he was much more interested in the chemistry. And then I realized pretty quickly that he wasn't going to tell anybody anything, because he didn't like to be told what to do. You know, he was in some bands, I think, in the past, where they were saying, do this, do this. No, don't do that. I want you to play this part. And he didn't enjoy that. He you know, so in his band, it was all based on, it's almost like being a casting director, you know, like picking the right actors that have some chemistry and create something together in an improvisational way. Because if you're not going to tell anybody anything, if you're not going to tell them no, it was like, well, I want to pick people who bring things to my music that I enjoy without telling them. So, you know, so yeah, it was like that. So the first gig was Jeff Berlin and myself, and then we toured. It was great. It was a thrill. It was just so open, and you know, and he was such a powerful player. Like sometimes he would start, depending on the song, you know, he played beautifully. But on some tunes he would take, like the start of his guitar solo might be at an intensity level that I was used to with another guitar player at the end of their solo. You know, it would start with this huge intensity and grow and grow and grow. So I thought, oh wow, okay, I've got to learn to pace myself or figure out how to support this incredibly intense, you know, like solo composition of these spontaneous. It was challenging, and I could tell he didn't really want patterns played too much. It wasn't a funk, you know, it wasn't like a fusion as far as like R&B and jazz, which was kind of happening at the time on the radio and stuff. There was a lot of bands that were kind of almost like playing songs, but instead of vocalists, they'd have a sax or that kind of thing. So it wasn't like that at all, you know. But it was more. I thought was more kind of rooted in the Tony Williams Lifetime type of vibe. So I kind of started there as far as a reference, and then of course listened to the IOU record, which is a fantastic record. Then from there we made the Road Games album with that band. And we toured a lot in the States, just very frugally, you know, Cadillac and a trailer.
Oh man, really? Oh wow.
With Steve Morris's band too. We did a lot of a couple tours with his band as well. Cool. Yeah, some fun days, hilarious stuff.
Yeah. Like, how did you keep fresh on those gigs? I mean, or even now, like on tour, that, you know, but especially with Allan, I guess, since you're more or less improvising all the time, like even within the tunes, right? Like, do you have a recipe still now, like how to reinvent yourself every evening? I mean, I have problems with that sometimes. When it's gig 12, I'm like, shit, man. With myself that I keep repeating myself, but maybe I'm not, and maybe that's who you are. Like,
well, we were playing a lot of tunes, and Paul Williams was also in the band at the time. We had a vocalist,
Yeah.
so there were songs, but they were, as you know, his songs were not typical. Like there would be like a song, but then Paul would leave the stage for the solos and stuff, and he'd come back and sing the end of it. So in between, it would get very adventurous. And well, I think I learned pretty quickly that when you play with improvisers that are that strong, something great's going to happen. So there's no kind of urgency. You know what I mean? Like even if I stop, the other guys are going to create something beautiful.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the trust.
Sometimes I could take the lead. Sometimes Allan would take the lead. Sometimes Jeff would take the lead. And the next band we had was with Jimmy Johnson on bass.
Yeah.
And then we made that Metal Fatigue record. I played on half of it, which actually was a demo, but Allan liked what we did, so he took our demo bass and drum parts, which I think we did in a day, maybe 2 days.
Wow.
And he worked on the guitars for a long time. And then Gary played on the other half of that record, and and on. Yeah.
Did he give you guys lead sheets, or how did he present tunes to you? No, right?
Played the guitar part.
Oh, okay, that was it. Okay.
Yeah, so it was all just very open.
Wow.
Play what you want on top of it.
That's so cool. Amazing, man. Oh, yeah. No, amazing. It's like I love hearing this because it's just when you listen to that music, it's amazing. And I love that you did.
It's wonderful music. It really is. Yeah. It's very special. There's nothing like it.
No,
and everybody in the band feels that very strongly that way too.
Yeah, exactly.
He had a really different way of course, approaching harmony. He had a different way of approaching time. I mean, it just really interesting musical form. People analyze it now and they're just amazed. It's wild. Great modulations.
Oh man, like.
What a unique man! What a unique musician! An unsung hero. I mean, he was respected. I always told him, I even wrote to him many times saying how much I thought he was a genius. And I don't give a shit what the world says or understands. Take it from one of your peers. You're a flippin' genius and you're just amazing. You've created a whole style that has been so copied. You were the trailblazer. Trailblazer. It's always harder to lead than follow, and he was definitely a leader in his field. People like that are rare in this earth. And every opportunity I got, I would tell him how much I appreciated what he had done for guitar and music. So, we had a friendship. The first Electric Band tour I did, it was a quartet, and his band opened for us throughout the U.S. So, so he would come off the stage every night and say, "I'm sorry you had to hear that." He was the most self-deprecating person I ever met. He was so down on himself. He thought because he couldn't read music, that he was less than, it's the stupidest thing ever. And, after a while, we'd always say, that was amazing. We'd be off the side of the stage going, that's incredible. And he would go, he'd walk off the stage like this, head down. It was horrible. And after a while, we started to agree with him. We go, oh, man, we'd be holding our noses as he came off the stage. And then he started to laugh. And loosen up, He was very English. I'm Australian, so I could relate to the humor, but we did that record, Truth and Shredding.
Yeah, that's why.
Mark Varney was a huge fan of Allan and a huge fan of mine, and his big dream was to put us together, which was, at first I went, I can't be on the same record with him. That guy is like, whoa, forget it. Anyway, he asked me to produce it, so I chose the songs. A lot of them were Brecker tunes and my favorite jazz tunes. There was one original composition. But the thing I wanted, when I first heard Holdsworth, I heard him on Jean-Luc Ponty's album called Enigmatic Ocean.
Ocean, yeah.
And that first track where Allan comes in with his tone and the notes, and it was just like the most refreshing guitar I ever heard in my life. I'd never heard anything like it. And I had no idea how he played. I couldn't figure it out at all. So I gave up trying. I never even tried to play like Allan. A lot of people kind of copied his style.
Yeah.
I had no idea as a kid. What the hell? It was 74, I think, in Enigmatic Ocean, or 76, something like that. I was 16.
Yeah.
So I always, when I heard him play his own music, it was very esoteric and, a lot of chords, chord. It's like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Brilliant, but exhausting, even for someone who can understand the depth of what he's doing. And the chords he plays were
it's insane. Yeah.
Yes, and so, but I always wanted to hear him again, like that Jean-Luc Ponty record, on chords that were simpler, with a bit more space, like a couple of bars of each chord. And so I chose those kind of songs. And the funny thing in that contract for Truth in Shredding, Mark Varney was such a guitar freak that he said each solo has to be 2 minutes long from each of you in each song. I mean, where do you find a contract like that these days?
I love it.
Each solo has to. I had to time the choruses so that there was enough choruses going around, and so there's a lot of guitar on those records. But to hear Allan playing over what I call standard chord progressions was really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so I did my best. Allan was not able to record with us. I recorded live with the band.
Ah, okay.
And he added his parts later in his own studio, in his own time, because I knew that would be the best approach for him. If he had to do it live, he wouldn't have been happy. And I just know his character. And so that's how it happened. And I remember we mixed the album together in the studio, and I mean, literally, he was 1 foot away from me, and I'd watch him play, and I still couldn't figure out what he was doing. Even this close, I'm going, what do you do? I just don't. And he didn't know what I was doing either. So it kind of, he said, what are you doing? Oh, what are you doing? One hand, He was brilliant, and I'm really glad I got to know him as a person and have that one album documented together. It was an honor and a pleasure to have done that with him.
Besides all these players, how did you end with Allan Holdsworth? And what was your experience like with him? Me being a guitarist, I spoke the other day with Gary Husband, this interview, and what are your thoughts on Allan and your meeting him? How did that happen?
That was incredible, and I was a big fan, obviously, of his music and his playing.
Yeah,
and especially two rhythm sections. I'm sorry about that. I just dropped something. There's two rhythm sections that I really, really loved. I mean, I loved all the recordings, but there are 2 rhythm sections that I absolutely loved, and that was Jimmy Johnson and Chad Wackerman.
Yeah.
And so I used to listen to all those records. They did most of the recordings, but there was a really nice record that I absolutely loved, and that had a bass player that I spent a little time with, and a drummer that I do a lot of work with, Gary Novak.
Oh yeah.
And the bass player was Dave Carpenter.
Oh, 16 Men of Tain. I love that record. Yeah,
love the record.
What's the
incredible
first
record?
0274. That's, oh man, that's.
So I was listening to all that, and and then all of a sudden, here's the real crazy thing. In the early 70s, I was living in San Francisco. And then I would every once in a while come home and like visit with my mom and dad and my friends. And then one time I came home and a friend of mine said, "Hey, this guy Allan Holdsworth is playing." No, he didn't say that. He said this guy Tony Williams is playing at a club near your house. I said, "Oh, you mean there's a place in Roslyn, New York called My Father's Place?" That was the name of the club. And they had international groups coming in all the time. And I saw a lot of bands there. So Tony Williams, I was a big fan of. We didn't know what it was, but it said Tony Williams Lifetime. So we said, let's go check it out. So we got tickets, we went in, and it was this band with Allan Holdsworth, Alan Pasqua on keyboards, and a really great bass player named Tony Newton. And they were playing music from a record called Believe It, which wasn't even out yet. It hadn't even been released. And we were just like checking these guys out going, this is incredible. It's like a rock band, but beyond that, and I never heard a guitar player sound like Allan Holdsworth. So I was just blown away by him. And then later I got into all his music and stuff. And I actually met him a couple of times, like, these things called NAMM shows. Yeah. So there's one in Anaheim here in California. So a couple of times when I was down there working, doing something for some manufacturer, I would run into Allan Holdsworth and people would introduce us, and it was great. But he was playing with Jimmy Johnson and Chad Wackerman. I was doing Yellow Jackets and all this other stuff. So all of a sudden, I think it was around 2002, I got a phone call from Alan Pasqua, who I knew. I knew Alan and done a bunch of things with him. And I said, "Hey, what's going on?" He said, "Well, I'm supposed to go out on tour with Allan Holdsworth, a tribute to Tony Williams and the Tony Williams Lifetime. And the bass player doesn't feel good and he's canceling." And that was Alfonso Johnson. And Alan Pasqua said, "Would you be willing to do this tour?" And I went, "Wow, okay. Well, what are the dates?" And he gave me the dates, and I looked, and I was able to move a few things around, and I did the tour.
Wow.
And on that tour, somewhere in the middle of that tour, we decided to do a DVD, which was up in Oakland, California at Yoshi's, club called Yoshi's. So that came out pretty good. Although I was just like learning the music at that time, but at the same time, it was a pretty good performance. And the company that put the DVD out did a really good job with the filming and the recording and all that. And so that was it. I ended up playing in that quartet for a couple of years. And then after that, Alan liked playing with me, and we liked each other as people, and he just said, "Do you want to do some trio gigs with me?" And I said, "I'd love to." So I ended up doing a few trio things with Chad Wackerman, but the bulk of the trio stuff that I did was with Virgil Donati.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh,
yeah.
I love Virgil. Oh man, that must have been heavy. Whew.
I did. Yeah, it was unbelievable. So I ended up, working with Virgil on other things as well. And he's incredible.
He's a monster. Yeah.
So I probably did, I don't know, 80 or 90 shows, maybe more, maybe 100 shows with Virgil. I probably did, you know, a month or so of gigs with Chad and some other little special things that we did. I think Chad had something with a cymbal company at a NAMM show, and he asked me and Allan to do it with him. So we did. And then I ended up, one of the last things I did was a really nice tour with Gary Husband.
Yeah, I saw that on YouTube. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was we went to Korea, but we did all of East Coast and Chicago, some other gigs in the Midwest, and then we went to Japan, and we went to Korea, and it was a place north of Seoul. I can't even pronounce the name, but it was an hour plus north of there, in a really big open field, and it was a festival called Jerusalem. And so that was one of the last. I did some more gigs with Allan and Virgil after that. Somewhere in there, I even did like one show, I think, with Gary Novak and Allan.
Really?
And Allan Pasqua.
Oh,
Yeah, because
wow.
I think Chad, we were doing this one show here in LA, and Chad was unavailable, so we got Gary Novak to do it. So that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you guys ever talk about music, like how to play those tunes, or like how did you learn the music? Because I know I've spoken with Steve Hunt, you know, the piano player who played with Allan, and he said like, you know, there were no lead sheets.
There's no charts.
Yeah. How did that work?
Well, you know, I used to learn a lot of music just by ear, you know, just memorizing stuff. So that wasn't a far-fetched way of learning the music, but it's very complex, and there's a lot going on. So it took me some time to really feel fully comfortable with the music. But I got some cheat sheets from Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
He had some cheat sheets that helped me with at least some of the harmony.
Yeah.
You know, because even like the bar lines and the meter and stuff, none of that was written out. So you had to kind of figure out if there was like a bar of 7 and then 2 bars of 5 and then back to 4/4 and then a bar of 9. You know, it's like all over the place. But you know, even with the Yellow Jackets, I had a lot of experience with odd meter music. So I was fairly comfortable with understanding what the music was. It was just a matter of getting comfortable with actually playing the parts and learning how to improvise over some of this stuff, you know, to make it, you know, all
organic.
flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it organic. Yeah.
Oh man, you know, Allan would call me up and say, "Oh man, I'm doing a record, and you know, and it sounds like shit." You know, he would always say crazy shit like that. And you know, I know you wouldn't want to play on it. And I go, "Of course I'll play on it, Allan. You know, geez, you know, oh man, I'm sorry." Yeah, he'd start apologizing before we even got off the phone. Nothing was. I'd get to the studio and there's no music, and I would spend the majority of my time transcribing the harmony, you know, into what I could, you know. This is another footnote I'll tell you about Michael Brecker, which is really interesting too.
Oh, please, yeah.
And then I'd solo, you know, then I'd spend, you know, a third of the time playing on it, you know, but once there's no system to it, there's no trickery, it's just, you know, there's no formula to his stuff. It's just really in the outer extremities of the harmonic universe. The way he builds chords, and really hard to transcribe.
Yeah,
hard to transcribe. And beautiful. I mean, so much of his music, the melody comes from the harmony almost.
Yeah.
Like Giant Steps almost, you know, the melody in Giant Steps comes from the harmony. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think a lot of Allan's music is that, you know, the melody is just in the chords. And, you know, of course, there's some that weren't constructed that way. But I think that's what makes for me, that's what made it hard to do that transcription, because, you know, it was all built in. You know, you had to get it all. It wasn't like, oh, here's the melody line, I'll get the chords.
Interesting. Yeah.
And because, you know, those things were never played on piano before.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, what is this? You know, I'd have to make up these names for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Bizarre.
Footnote to Michael Brecker: when I made a record called Dedications.
Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Randy and Michael and Gary Bartz are on, Dave Holland and Paul Modian. And there was a tune called The Emergence. And I remember actually having a big fight with the producer, Ralph Simon, over. He said, I don't think this tune should go on the record. And I insisted that it did. He goes, yeah, I think it's the one of the weaker tunes on the record. And I thought he was crazy. And of course, now years later, when I listened to it, I think he was right. But Michael called me up and he said, man, you know, I sent him the music, and he said, I'm looking at your changes. And he said, what do you mean by this? You know, he would isolate a chord. He goes, what are you going to play over that chord? You know? And I was like, oh, well, I would play this. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he'd write down what worked in his system. It's so
interesting.
Cool. All of a sudden I realized, man, it's, you know, because piano players tend to be piano centric. And I've always been quoted by saying one piano is one too many.
And there's some people would come and hear the Allan Holdsworth shows, you know, back in the day, and you know, I was accused of what do you call when you you know, try to destroy something purposely. I was accused of sort of being detrimental to that music by simply the spirit and the, you know, often the volume, and
really?
but I think people were hearing was just an intense expression.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like, but this is what I understood from when I listened to Coltrane and Elvin, and when I listened to Miles and Tony Williams, and John and Billy Cobham.
Exactly.
So what's the big deal? I don't get it. But I mean, for those who sort of did get it, it was okay. But there was a lot of resistance to maybe sort of playing with such a strong motive and being. It's too overbearing for people. But there, for me, it was totally for the music all the time. Yeah. And Allan, all he wanted was propulsion and constant improvisational movement. He wanted activity, ever-changing activity all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what he demanded. I mean, the moment anybody fell into a backbeat, it was a big no-no. You know, no, break it up, play with me. You know, take me on a ride. And he loved that.
Did you guys like when he presented like a new tune? How was the process there? Did you have like a carte blanche for drums? That like, or
absolutely, yeah. And I did a video cast, one of my own video casts, especially on that. And I tried to
check it out. Okay.
I'll send you a link.
Oh, please, yeah.
Create a thing for you to have it. but it's motivational, I hope, more than educational in a way. But it's also educational and insightful into a union of the particular way we worked, which was highly unconventional. I do realize that, but he would come being the completely reluctant band leader he was, and he'd say, I've got this thing, it kind of falls here and it does this, and then, or it goes round and round here, and you know, so there you go. I go, okay, so you know, what am I going to do? So he'd give me a recording of it, and you know, and I'd spend, because we had very little time to record those records that we did, and I just disappear for the night, and maybe spend, depending on how jet lagged I was, spend a night just living with this composition and coming up with it, letting intuition suggest to me what I could do that might be that might really set it up in interesting ways. So, you know, and really take note of the whole form and how to present it. So the fact, you know, he allowed me to take extreme liberties in that music, not only in the way that I'd approach it, but formically too. You know, he let me kind of introduce things in a way and play up ahead of things, and also finish them. He quite liked that when the drums were kind of furious and raging and finished the tune. And I know he really liked that. And so because I wanted to please him and stimulate him, keyword, I wanted him to remain stimulated and excited by what was going on. That was my motivation to really just get creative, because that's what he kind of asked me to do. And he had no idea. Well, it's kind of split between the fact he had no real fixed idea of what he wanted from drums, and paralleling that, he wanted the musician to really find their own expression in it. So for drums, that was a big opportunity, and I grabbed it. For better or worse.
No. Oh, for the best. Actually, it's like, come on, it's some of the best stuff out there. At least for me, you know, it's like.
Well, it was our little, you know, the little contribution, I guess, we in a corner of jazz rock somewhere. We're there.
Man, just I mean, was like already the first rehearsal like that with you guys, or the first gig that, like, almost no talking, that he just like.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It really was like that. Yeah. We just got into a room, and he'd heard me play somewhere, and he said, "Oh, I don't suppose you fancy having to play, do you?" Yeah. No. So I said, "Of course, you know, just name the place and the date, and I'll be there." And we did, but in setting up, I found out there were lots of other musicians at the studio, and we were all supposed to have this big giant jam. But it became clear to me that everybody else at some point had packed up their instruments and left and given up. Because I was just trying to get this connection with him and just working at it, and it was just going round and round, just totally free of form, playing off it. And I remember it was like waking up out of some kind of mysterious, sublime dream. At not only the experience was presented itself like that, but it was also it showed me kind of a way of going that I didn't even know existed within myself. So I mean, this was just hugely monumental experience to me, and say eye-opening, spirit-opening as an understatement. So it really was like that, and it just sort of continued to be. I'm very lucky.
And you were 18, right, when this happened, or like really young, or?
I was into 18 when we.
Man, that's incredible. That's incredible.
In actual fact, Hansford Rowe from the group Gong managed to find a cassette he had of a demo of the things you see, and because it's just like a great stocking filler in a way. I mean, it's you know, the sound quality is pretty inferior, and it was never mixed, but it was a demo, and it was at that point in time because I recognize his gear, the sound of his gear, and I recognize which kit I had and which cymbals I had, and I know that that was like really, really close to the beginning. And we're going to release that on a. I'm putting a compilation together called Postcards from the Past, and
fantastic.
That's going to be on there. You know, it's a nice stocking filler for that record, and an interesting document because despite its inferiority as sonically, it just represents how really it was right at the beginning. So it's nice, you know, nice to find that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was already a fan of the music, man. Even before I got the gig, I was already listening to this stuff as a kid. I already knew the music, you know. So when I started working with Allan, and Allan was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna play this," and like, dude, I already know the stuff, you know. And I remember Allan. We was in rehearsal one time, and I guess Allan was so. And Virgil made this comment as well. You know, sometimes people. Like, from my experience, it's like you pay attention to sometimes the small things that people say. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially because, like, in this, you know, you working with, you know, you in and out, you're working with all these people, and you're working with all these musicians. You don't get to know everyone all the time. Like, sometimes you may just be passing by and you only work with them one time your whole entire life. But I remember when I first started working with Virgil and Holdsworth, Virgil made a comment. He was like, "Oh man," he was like, "Yeah, man, you come to a rehearsal, man. You know, you know the music. We don't have to like stop." And you know, he just kind of left it at that, right? So it was his way of saying, like, "Hey, you know, you're prepared every single rehearsal, right?" Yeah. Allan was not prepared on every single rehearsal, you know, and so Allan made a comment. He was like, "Yeah, man." He was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Whenever you want to solo, just start soloing. I don't care." and then I made a joke. I said, "Allan, what if you solo? You want me to just start soloing as you're soloing?" He was like, "Yeah, why not?" So, and I guess that was their way of saying that they were very relieved and actually like happy that I was like really on top of the music the way I was. But I would always tell them, like, dude, like I always knew this music. So when we did like the tours and Allan would call out the songs, I just instantly go back to my childhood. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I remember listening to this, you know, learning this shit." You know what I'm saying? So it was easy for me because I was genuinely a fan of it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was it like on the road with you guys? I mean, playing that music. Did you talk about, you and Virgil, especially the rhythm section, what to do? Because I think you and Virgil was, you know, I think the most advanced, I'll put it carefully like that, but rhythm section, if you know what I mean, you know, you both guys are really digging into odd meters and polyrhythm.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Every rhythm section that Holdsworth used, it made his music sound different.
Yeah.
So of course his my favorite rhythm section of Holdsworth was Jimmy Johnson and
Vinny.
Vinny, yeah. And Steve
Hunt. Yeah, that's Monster.
The Secrets album.
Yeah.
That personally was my favorite rhythm section. You know, yes, Chad Wackerman was like been with him for forever, but I don't know, man. It was just something about Jimmy and you know.
Yeah, Vinny's crazy. Yeah, Vinny.
Yeah. It was just their chemistry.
Yeah.
But it's not saying that one is better than the other. It just sounded different.
Absolutely.
But that right there was my personal preference. And of course, me and Virgil, because I'm coming from more of a rockier, like, okay, so I'm coming more from progressive rock, jazz type of interpretation of his music, right? Virgil is the same thing. He's progressive a little bit, but then he still has the jazz influence, but then he's kind of like rock too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we're playing the same music that the other, but it sounds different though, because it's our own interpretations of it.
Yeah.
So that being said, that's what Allan wanted. Allan did not want me to sound like Jimmy Johnson. He did not want me to sound like Jimmy Haslip. He did not want me to sound like Gary Willis. He wanted me to play his music the way that I heard it. You know, same thing with Virgil. He didn't want Virgil to sound like Vinny. He didn't want Virgil to sound like Chad Wackerman. He didn't, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. He wanted his music to be interpreted the way the musicians interpreted the music.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? And so he made that comment. He was like, this is, you know, he was like, he appreciates that stuff. So I guess he found like an enjoyment of, oh, I didn't know my song could sound like this. I like this, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's what it was. So a lot of times on stage, we would just be having fun on stage, like just doing all kinds of crazy stuff that we probably didn't even rehearse, you know? But Allan, he liked the challenges. He liked the different interpretations of his music. He liked that stuff. Yeah. And that's what he wanted. And I feel like that's the reason why me and Virgil was there, because we interpreted his music our own way.
Yeah.
Because if he wants Vinny, he could just get Vinny. If he wants Chad Wackerman, he could just get Chad Wackerman. But he wanted Virgil. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what it was.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, like I said, you know, I love you guys for what you guys are doing underneath him. It's just like, man, what the, you know, what's happening there sometimes. And then he's playing these crazy lines over, and it's like, damn, man, that's crazy.
He liked that stuff, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and I remember us getting off stage sometime, and I remember we were in, oh my God, where were we? We were, I think in Poland, I believe. Yeah, we were in Poland. And I remember us getting off stage, and Allan was so, like, he was crying, right? Because he felt like he didn't do his best. Like, he was apologizing to me too. He's like, Anthony, I'm so sorry, man. He was like, dude, that one measure on that one particular song that I literally forgot about. He was like, dude, I'm so sorry I didn't hit that with you. Or like, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, although he was definitely, you know, he's a virtuoso guitarist, the thing I really appreciated about Allan was that when he played with a band, he wanted to be a part of the band. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm Allan Holdsworth and it's all about me. Like, no, he wanted everyone to be a part of the situation. So, like, if he felt like that he wasn't keeping up, he would tell me. He was like, dude, I just, you know, I'm sorry I wasn't on this. Or like, he would literally come apologize to me. And then I remember telling him, I'm like, Allan, you ain't got to apologize. I'm like, dude, like, we're just having fun. He was like, yo, man. But, you know, he would take it a little bit more personal, because I guess it's, you know, it's him, it's his music, and here I am playing all this shit, and he's not keeping up, or whatever the case. I don't know what was going on through his head. But I remember him getting off stage and literally, like, apologizing to me, you know. And then I remember telling Allan, I'm like, look, man, like, we're just having fun, man. Like, look, I'm like, look, dude, like, and I'm talking to him just like this. Like, I'm talking to you. I'm like, look, dude, like, it's not even like, dude, like, I'm just happy, you know, that you even consider, you know, working with me like this. But, dude, like, you know, it's not that serious. You know what I'm saying? But in him, it is serious. It was serious, because it's like, you know, I'm playing my music. This is what he get enjoyment from. He takes it seriously, you know. And then it's like, if he felt like that he wasn't like 100%, he could have been literally a 90%. That little 10% would mess up his whole entire night, you know.
Yeah, I've heard those stories. Yeah, yeah. He was very, very self-critical. I mean, like, everyone said that, yeah, which is bizarre, you know. It's yeah,
he's very self-critical, man. Very self-critical. Like, you know, we started working on a solo album. Still, is never going to get released, but I remember us working on an album, a studio album, and I remember Virgil calling me a couple of times, because Allan would record a solo, he would like it, and then the next day he wouldn't like it You know what I'm saying? So he would just delete the whole entire solo.
Oh shit, man! Come on.
And sometimes he will make a mistake and delete the whole entire song. So I remember Virgil calling me like, "Hey Anthony, can you resend that bass file? Allan deleted the song again."
Man.
But he was very passionate. Like if he felt like it wasn't 100%, he would literally delete everything. That's just how passionate he was, man. He would delete everything.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. Yeah.
We had fun on that and everything. So, but the way I met Allan was through that, because he called me up once in the 80s, and he said it was in the winter time, and he goes, "Hey, listen, I have this huge tour going to Europe. This is 1987, and he goes, I got this big tour going through Europe. He goes, but it's 2.5 months long, 10 weeks long.
Jesus, that's long.
And which was exciting and stuff, and all through Europe and all that. But I was just married for 7 years, and I had 3 kids. One was only a year old at that time. Man. And then I told Stanley, I'm like, man, it sounds great. I'd love to do this. It's exciting, but I need to talk to my wife, because we had to make some kind of plans for the kids, and I'm gonna be gone. And back then there was no FaceTime, and you couldn't even call from hotels in Europe because it was expensive, and you couldn't get a good connection. So 2.5 months away from the family was a lot. But I said, let me talk to my wife, and we'll see how I can figure. He goes, okay, that's cool. See what you can do and everything. And oh, by the way, Allan Holdsworth is opening up for us on the whole tour. And I said, wait a minute, what'd you say? He goes, oh, so Allan's going to be our opening act for the whole 2.5 months. And I mean, I'm a huge Holdsworth fan, and never talked to him or anything, but I was a giant fan. And then so I just said, oh, is that the case? Hey, I can do the tour, man. I can do the tour. I'll do it. I'll definitely. And he goes, do you need to talk to your wife? I'm like, she's going to be cool. It's going to be all right. Because I'm like, I'm not going to pass this up, just to be hanging with Allan for 2.5 months and whatever. I had no dream that he would ask me to play, but it's just like, I get this. So we started this tour, and they played first. All my stuff would be set up for Stanley's gig, but they would play, and then after about a week, I would show up at every one of his shows just before we played and listen. And Chad Wackerman was playing. Chad's brother was playing bass. It was just a trio. Oh, okay. And so it was. I guess Jimmy Johnson couldn't do it, so Chad's brother, who plays really great, played bass, and Allan. And Allan had just had the Syntax, and I think he had just done Sand. He finished Sand, I think. Okay. And Avatron, so the Syntax was new, so he had it out with him. But if you're doing a trio with guitar, I mean, if you're playing and you get to the solo section and you play a solo, you can stop and play a chord or play a couple of notes. But he had a problem with the Syntax because it was just single notes playing, and then all of a sudden, like on Looking Glass and Pudwood and all these tunes, there was no chords because it was just a trio. So they played with a cassette.
Seriously.
So what Chad did is they made a cassette with a click track. It was just a tambourine on the left channel of a cassette. And then they mapped it out so that when the solos started, Allan had recorded the chords to the solo. So when they played Looking Glass, for instance, he would play the song, but Chad had to listen to this click track. Wow. And when they got to the solo, Allan's chords would come in on the cassette, and it would feed back into his amps. And then he would change to a solo set, and he would solo on the Syntax. And then, but they had to do it exactly the same way every night. And if for whatever reason they got off by a beat or a measure, which it would be completely off, So and Chad hated it because he had this tambourine banging him in the head. Allan hated it because if he wanted to do another chorus, he couldn't. And so we were on the bus. This is about after a week. He goes, "Hey, do you want to sit in with us and so we can get rid of this effing cassette, man. We hate this effing cassette, man. And so I said, yeah, I'm here. I can play chords, you know. So he wrote out a few little things. I figured out. He showed me some stuff on, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 songs, like Looking Glass, Pudwood, a few others, and I forget the tunes I played, but it was a good chunk of the set, and so I just started playing with him, you know, and that's how it happened.
Wow! So it was really natural, basically.
So my luck was I got to replace a cassette. That was, you know, I'm slightly better than a cassette, so I got the gig, you know, and so and the other thing I had Oberheim, I had Oberheims and DX7s, and I used big because I was really into Joe Zawinul chord, so I had all these kind of Zawinul sounds and patches and stuff, and he loved that kind of stuff too, Allan. Very orchestral, organic kind of sounds. But anyway, so he so then towards the end of the tour, he goes, "Hey, listen, I have a tour with my band coming up in September. Would you care to join us? You know, if you would like." And he was very humble.
Please, I love this.
So anyway, that's how I joined the band. And then he said, you know, he's very humble. And he's like, "Hey, I don't know if you want to do this or not, you know, but you can let me know. And I have this tour coming up, and you probably don't want to do it, but you know, would you care to join us on the tour?" And I was like, oh my God, you know, I was trying to keep my composure. I'm like, "Oh, I think I can do it. Yeah, I'd love to." And I had to learn all the other tunes. And then I have a good friend here in Boston, guitar player Bruce Bartlett, that we used to get together and learn Allan's tunes together, and we had a band together. And in fact, my band opened up for Allan years before.
Oh, really? Oh, well,
and here, a friend of mine produced the Allan concert here in Salem, Massachusetts, and and so my friend said, "Hey, do you want to open up for Allan?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So this guitar player Bruce Bartlett, and Jimmy Earl was in the band, and then we had a local drummer, Ed Uribe, and then we opened up for Allan. But Allan didn't get to hear us play because they were driving from New Jersey, and there was a big storm, and they were really late. So his roadie, Gordy, who I know now, he came up, he goes, "You guys have to play more tunes because they're stuck coming up from New York." I'm like, "All right." So we played extra tunes, and we were like nervous opening up for Allan. We were like kids, you know, and and then, so I got to see his show. I was like, so happy. And then, but I was too nervous. I saw after the show, he was talking to a bunch of people, very nice, you know, but I was too nervous to actually go speak to him. So I never introduced myself or talked to him. I was like, "Oh my God, there's God." I mean, God. It's like, so I never met him then. So he was very humble. He's like, "Oh," he goes, so after he asked me to do a tour, I got a postcard. I think we were in, I don't know, Germany or something. I got a postcard, and I wrote it to my friend Bruce Bartlett. And the only thing I put on the thing, I just put, "I got the gig." And I sent it to Bruce, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. And I think he still has it up on his wall somewhere in his.
That's so beautiful.
Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
The first time I met him was because Henderson knew him, and he was looking for I was a sub for Jimmy Johnson on a tour.
Wow. Okay.
And since they were going to tour, he decided, okay, let's go in the studio as well. And so I played on one tune, which was like half a record or something like that. So basically, yeah, I was a sub. We toured around the U.S. and it was kind of weird because at that point the band, he still had the singer John Williams.
Yeah.
And so there was like some friction between those two that was, you know, it made the long days driving kind of uncomfortable, you know.
Oh yeah, okay.
So it was kind of a weird situation to be put into. It was kind of frustrating because you know, he's a complicated person when it comes to his playing. You can't like give him a compliment. You know, he will drag you through the mud like you're an idiot if you think he played well. You know,
Seriously? Oh wow.
yeah, he's like, oh, that sucked. I was horrible. You know, there's no acknowledging that you thought it was better or worse than any other thing. You know, so that part was kind of frustrating. But like the super nicest guy you've ever met. You know, like a super nice human being. It was another kind of weird situation was making the jazz record with him. With Kirk. We got down there and Gordon Beck, the keyboard player, was an acoustic pianist, you know, and a great one. But he was having to deal with a controller, which he hadn't done before. So that he was a little out of his element there. The other thing was that Holdsworth, like I suppose most of his projects, he knew he was going to probably record everything again. So on this record, he didn't even bother.
Oh, wow.
He didn't track one note. So we would rehearse the songs and say, okay, guitar solo here, and Kirk and I would play and hope, you know, kind of like there was a solo section, you know. And so
wow, interesting.
That's how it happened, and he added everything later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man. But and when you play the bass solo, you also played it only with Kirk, like very early with the Bill Evans tune, like that.
Yeah.
Only you and Kirk. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't know that because you know, I love his. I mean, like his playing on that record. You don't hear him playing standards many times, but you know, Countdown he plays. It's like, man, the lines he plays is just like
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. That's quite cool.
So I mean, in having the opportunity to do it over the years, there's an art to recording a solo, to the events in a rhythm section. You know, you can make it like so ungodly amazing that how did that happen, you know, and you can blow people's minds when it didn't happen, or you can make it as if it happened in real time, where you play a rhythm and the rhythm section reacts to it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Allan did. You know, he would certain times he would suggest a rhythm, and then you would hear it in the rhythm section. So that's how we would react.
Because he heard, sure.
Yeah. So I've had, you know, situations where I've had to do that, or Henderson's had to do that to our rhythm section playing and things like that. And so there's an art to having access to enough and understanding vocabulary enough to compose or record a solo.
Yeah, definitely.
Existing, you know, tracks. So.
Yeah, but I mean, nowadays that's easy, you know, to do because of technology. But still, we're talking about '96, so must have been harder to do for him also. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, the technology back then, I think he might have been still using tape.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he still might have been using tape, maybe digital tape, but yeah, it was harder. But you know, like from the beginning, like my philosophy was, from the beginning, I never knew if this was going to be my last recording opportunity, you know, and I had a sense that okay, this is permanent, like this is going to be forever, you know. So I would take advantage of whatever technology was available to make it so that I could stand listening to it sometime in the future, you know. And so if that meant overdubbing, if that meant computer, whatever, you know, it's like you still have to have an imagination for what can happen musically. You know, it doesn't magically make you a great soloist. You know,
definitely.
You have to have concept for ideas and imagination and how ideas put together. So.